All right, so hi everyone, thanks again for joining. My name is Drew Horn. I am the Director of Business Development here at Sumo Logic. And before you kind of sit back and think, what is a business development person doing talking about CI/CD process and software development optimization? I'm also actually the product manager for this SDO for short, this SDO solution here at Sumo Logic. My background's been a good decade in quality assurance, software engineering, DevOps, and consulting with DevOps engineers on how to implement continuous testing and other automated processes into their CI/CD pipelines. And so, coming into Sumo as an SME, a subject matter expert at the time, I'm wearing the hat of a product manager for this solution. So, the focus for today. For those of you that are familiar with Sumo Logic, we're a very open-ended observability and security machine data analytics platform. So you can send just about any machine data to Sumo Logic, and you can parse that data, you can analyze that data, extract value out of that data, alert on that data to do just about anything, right? And so one of the things that we're focusing on here is specific use cases for machine data analytics and observability platform. And so again, today, I really want to focus on the tools that we put in place to make it easier for teams to monitor, benchmark, and improve their software velocity, their release quality, and their application reliability. So kind of this center lane here, monitoring the software development, CI/CD pipeline, identifying process inefficiencies or bottlenecks, in that process, and figuring out the root cause so that teams can make, data-driven decisions to optimize. So let's go ahead and jump into it. I want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that, as to why I came over to Sumo Logic to join the team here. So as someone that was, helping build, deploy high performance CI/CD pipelines, one of the challenges, the few key challenges that I run into in the past and that we're looking to try to solve for all of our joint customers, right? The software development ecosystem is vast, right? Modern applications require a modern DevOps toolchain, right? And what that translates to is, several different teams that are being empowered to use their own tools and software to build and deploy software, doing that differently, right? So teams are architecting different CI/CD pipelines to build and deploy different types of software, mobile apps, microservices, you name it, monolithic applications, web applications, IoT, et cetera, right? All in a single organization. And this kind of translates to what I call pipeline sprawl. So you've got a bunch of different teams that are automating and deploying software, but they're all doing it differently. Again, furthermore, they're grabbing different tools to do so. And one of the challenges that we're seeing for teams that are interested and organizations that are interested in measuring their software delivery performance is trying to collect all of that data from all of these different tools that are all structured differently, that all only have a slice of the data required to compute some of the industry standard metrics to measure software delivery performance, and do that in real time, and keep all of the logs tied to those metrics for troubleshooting, and aggregate that data and slice that data by different dimensions that are made available to different parts of the organization, right? So, a software developer responsible for a single service may only be interested in how to, monitor and optimize the development, build, test, deploy, alerting part of just their service, right? An engineering manager or leadership may be interested in a collection of services or entire product or a business unit. People in technology leadership would like to understand across the entire organization how are we performing, and then drill down and understand what teams are doing well, how can we share information across different teams, which teams may be understaffed or may need additional help or additional training, right? So it's a really complex problem with a bunch of siloed data. And coming over here to Sumo, we kind of came to the realization that an open-ended, unopinionated analytics platform is a great place to send all of that data, enrich that data with context about your organization, normalize that data to a single common schema to make it plug and play for any tools in your DevOps tool chain, and correlate that data to compute metrics that require data, as you see here on the left, from all of these different tools. And I'll get a little bit into that. I think everyone on the call, I'm sure, probably can appreciate the benefits of being able to build and deploy software faster, right? So teams that are building and deploying software faster, according to state of DevOps research and the DevOps research and assessment organization, have tied the ability to release faster and with higher quality, right? Those companies are enjoying higher productivity, higher profitability, customer and employee satisfaction. So basically everybody wins, right? And why is everyone not doing that? Well, again, like I said, it's challenging. So let me talk a little bit about some of these industry standard metrics and some of the key features that we put into our solution to help teams compute these metrics, monitor them, and when there are bottlenecks or when there are issues in the CI/CD process, identifying them quickly, and in a data-driven way, deciding what issues to focus on and fix to optimize, right? So feature number one, real-time actionable insights, and again, what I mentioned earlier, the DORA metrics for the entire organization, right? Teams need to be able to understand at a minimum, and you'll see here in the demo, we got a bunch of other different metrics we're computing, but deployment frequency, lead time, mean time to recovery, and change failure rate. So these are kind of some of the 4 super common metrics that teams are computing in order to evaluate their software delivery performance. We're doing it here at Sumo. We use our own tool internally. Unintentionally, ironically, the development team reached out to the product team about building a solution to measure these metrics, and we had actually already started doing that. So we're definitely dogfooding the solution here internally. A couple more things here that I'll just jump through real quick. I mentioned earlier, logs and events from the entire DevOps lifecycle, normalizing that for end-to-end visibility and root cause analysis. Being able to compute these metrics automatically, you have to normalize this data. You need to have logs in order to dig down to the root cause, right? So, platforms that are, showing some of these insights and trends, it's great to understand how you're performing, especially if you're performing well and improving. But if you're not, it's really want to dig into the why of it. And that's why we feel that, powering the solution based off of logs is a critical piece. Enriching this data by meaningful dimensions in your organization, cutting data by team, by product, by repository. This is what's going to make a solution like this valuable to as many people in the organization as possible. We don't want to build a solution here that just the CTO uses. We don't want to build a solution that just a single developer uses. It needs to be meaningful for your entire organization to help build trust and collaboration. And then finally, extensibility. I talked about normalization. The DevOps tool chain, it's constantly changing. I'm sure there's people on the call that are going through digital transformation. Maybe they're they've got new teams that are focused on transitioning maybe to microservices or Kubernetes from a prior architecture. Maybe you've acquired a company and you're trying to figure out how to enable different teams across the org to use the tools that they want. These are both things that we're going through here at Sumo Logic, right? We just acquired a company that's a it's a Windows shop, right? We're a Mac shop, but we want to enable everyone with the ability to use the tools they want, right? So extensibility, mission critical. Let me talk a little bit about the solution architecture here, just at a high level. Then I think we'll jump into the demo. And then finally, I think you got a message maybe in your chat from the moderator. We'll take some Q&A here at the end of the chat, but feel free to start posting questions now as we go through the call, and I promise I'll get to those here at the end. Okay, architecture overview. There's a few critical components that make this solution work. I would say probably the most important one is I'm sure most of the people on the call, analytics, monitoring productivity, trying to make decisions on how to improve may not be your day job. Your day job may be writing code, running a team of developers, testing code, building CI/CD pipelines, building infrastructure as code, responding to incidents in production. If this takes a non-trivial amount of time to set up and get up and running, in our opinion, it's almost already not even worth your time, right? So we want to make this as easy as possible for teams to get set up and running quickly. And we're doing that with Terraform. So we have a built-in Terraform provider for Sumo Logic that works with our API. We have out-of-the-box support for the tools that you see down below. We're adding more. We've got more on the way with some popular CI/CD tools coming out of the likes of GitLab, Azure, Circle CI, coming down here later in next quarter. And the goal here is to leverage Terraform to do a couple things. The first thing is it's going to reach out to these out-of-the-box tools, these tools that you use, and automatically configure these tools to trigger webhooks based off of actions that are occurring in the platform. So a pull request, a build, a deployment, an incident in production, opening or closing a Jira issue or bug, those are going to trigger incidents back to Sumo Logic. The next thing that's going to happen is Terraform is going to install what we call field extraction rules in Sumo Logic. You can think of that as a set of parsers and mappers that are going to take this proprietarily structured data from all these tools and normalize it to a common schema, right? And again, that's what's going to allow automatic correlation and computation of these metrics and more, which we'll go over. And then finally, this is going to come in and install the actual content, the actual out-of-the-box content, all of the dashboards that sit on top of that normalized data. And what that's going to enable, again, is extensible, right? If we have, plenty of customers where maybe they only have one or some of these, or even none of these tools. You can still plug in, any tool that you'd like from your DevOps tool chain that applies to these metrics, and send the data to Sumo and put in the FERs, right? Right. So it needs to be flexible. We have to have a normalized schema to do that. And then, this normalization also makes it really easy to build, any custom alerts on top of the data. So if you want to keep an eye on, any sort of errors or metrics or trends that aren't enabled out of the box, right? There's full flexibility and extensibility to do that. Okay. I'm going to flash these up for those of you that may want to screenshot or capture these. I had mentioned earlier, this is kind of the basis of the solution that we created was based off of the state of DevOps reports created by Dora. They did the better half of a decade. They ran annual reports and analyzed surveys from DevOps focused engineers across the globe, and with some applied data science, and they've been able to come to the conclusion that these are the 4 key metrics that are important to succeeding, right? And they've kind of created different baselines of what is a low performer, what is a medium performer, what is a high performer, what is an elite performer, and the relationship between those. And these are the these are some of the latest numbers that they came out with. How much more of an advantage elite performers across these metrics have when compared to teams that aren't focusing on improving these metrics, right? Quick definition of these 4 metrics: deployment frequency, how often are you deploying to production; lead time, how long does it take to go from the initial merge commit to a production deployment, right? You want that as short as you can get it. Those are measures of throughput or market agility. And then on the other side, we balance this with measures of reliability. So mean time to recovery is how long does it take to recover from production incidents. And change failure rate, what percentage of deployments pushed out into production subsequently require remediation, and you want that as low as you can get it. I mentioned correlation earlier as one of the key parts of computing these metrics, right? So if you take a look, for example, what is the information that you want to capture about your deployment frequency? Well, you're going to want to look at your GitHub data from like pull requests, and then you're going to want to look at deployment data from Jenkins to understand how often you're deploying, right? If you want to look at lead time, right, you need to have the data about the merge commit from, for example, GitHub or some other version control system, right? And you need information about the deployment. That could be Jenkins, it could be Bitbucket, it could be Circle CI, it could be Argo CD, it could be Spinnaker, that doesn't matter, right? But you need those 2 data points, and you need to normalize that. And if your organization has 5 different CI/CD tools or 2 or 3 different version control tools, those all need to be folded into a common schema to do this right at scale and in real time, right? Mean time to recovery, that could just be incidents from PagerDuty. It could just be maybe bugs from Jira. It could be a combination of the 2. Different organizations do this differently. Sometimes they combine this data together, where they want to measure when an incident is raised in PagerDuty to when the associated bug is closed, right? For resolution. Some people just use PagerDuty, some people just use Jira. There's plenty of other similar tools like these that you can use. But again, we're talking about combining data from different tools. And then change failure rate. This is a ratio between deployments and production incidents, right? So you need data from both of these tools to compute this metric, right? And there's plenty of other examples for other metrics that organizations are adding to the solution and extending upon. But just wanted to give you an example of some of the key ones that we ship out of the box. So now that you have a sense of, I'm sure everyone appreciates the challenge, the problem space. Maybe some of you have had challenges or even thought about doing this, or have implemented it, or have tried implementing it, but it takes too much time. I know I've been there. Now what I'd like to do is kind of walk through some of the out-of-the-box content that we've built, and then open it up for Q&A. So this is all of the out-of-the-box content that Terraform installs when configuring the solution. Of course, all of this can be installed manually. We have docs on how to do that. If you don't want to use Terraform, you can install it manually. Let me walk you through the content here. So at a high level, we have 2 overview dashboards. This is pretty common for all of the apps in our catalog. We typically start with overview dashboards and then allow you to start drilling down into more important or more detailed data below that. So the first I want to start with is the DORA metrics overview dashboard. We've got it up on the screen here. We're taking these 4 metrics. We're doing some single value readouts or a gauge to show teams, by default at the organizational level, how they're performing. So, green is going to be an elite performer, yellow is going to be a high performer, orange is a medium performer, and red is a low performer statistic. So we've color coded all of that for you. And then we have some time series data to show you. By default, we're showing a 2-week look back. That's adjustable. but we're showing you the trend in data over time to help tease out any information you may want to drill down in. Or as you can see here, we have outlier detection enabled. So if there's a really large spike in deployment frequency, or maybe even more concerningly, a very large drop in deployment frequency or lead time, et cetera, that may be something useful to dig into and understand what's driving that trend. Okay, let's let me take a sip of water, and then let's take a look at let's dig into some of the drill down charts for these metrics here. Okay, so taking a look at deployment frequency, we got the same data in here, but what we're starting to do, as I mentioned earlier, we're enabling organizations or teams to kind of slice this data by or filter this data by dimensions that are maybe more meaningful for them, right? So if I'm interested in deployment frequency to just a specific environment, or deployment frequency of a particular service, maybe customer bookings or payment, right? I can come in here to the service and I can filter by one of those services, right? So if I want to filter by payment, I can click on that and filter by that service, right? If I go into team, we can do the same. So if you're on a particular team or you're a team lead and you're interested just in metrics related to that, you can go in and filter by those metrics. So we're showing this data cut by repository, a 1-week comparison, this week versus last. Again, these are just defaults. The date ranges and the comparison ranges are easily modifiable. All of these. This is a demo environment. I'm not allowed to go in and start mucking with it, but for those of you installing it, you can edit these queries and go in and change some of those parameters. We've got deployments over time, and then again, success versus failed deploys. So this can be helpful to understand the relationship or the change in relationship between the successful versus failed deployments. And then you can filter and dig into the services or teams or environments that are contributing to those changes. And that same philosophy just goes throughout all of these drill downs. So going into lead time, we've got our filters up top again. We also have repository name up here. So what are the repositories with the slowest lead time? What is the lead time cut by service? And service can be defined. You define what that means, right? So some of our customers will just, each repo maps to a service name. So when that webhook comes into Sumo Logic, they map both the repo and the service name to they map the repo name to both the repo and the service. But again, the solution can be modified. You can do whatever you want, right? If you have, for example, if you're grouping your repositories by teams or by business unit, when that webhook data comes in, and if that team or business unit or product, right, or organizational unit or whatever is, or maybe a platform type, really anything comes in, you can parse that out, map it to our schema. You can extend the schema, like just earlier I said platform. So maybe web versus mobile, or mobile web, or Apple TV or Roku or whatever, right? You can, if that data is coming in and is parsable from the webhook data, from Jira or from Jenkins or from your CI or CD servers, you can add additional filters here and start slicing that data by those dimensions. Just a couple more things on this list. I want to drill down into this earlier. We have pipeline duration. So we're instrumenting, in this example, we're instrumenting the Jenkins pipeline data that this is built off of. And we list out here on the y-axis each pipeline that Jenkins has and how long, in average, over the last 14 days, those are taking. So this can be helpful to kind of understand the relationship between how long your CI/CD pipelines are taking to run. We have a whole chart where we can drill down into that data. I'll show in a minute. And then again, slicing the data here again, average lead time by repository. So on a day-by-day basis, you can look at the average lead times just in a stacked column chart here by repos. A couple more of the DORA metrics. Change failure rate, very similar. By default, we're showing top services by priority one incidents as made available in the likes of, an OpsGenie or a PagerDuty. Again, this can be modified. Some of our customers want to understand top services by all incidents, or maybe they'll add another panel here that's top services by P2 through P5. Bunch of flexibility there. Top 5 alerting services, what's alerting the most now and over the last 7 days. And then a trend of change failure rate over time. Right, you could even break this out by service if you wanted. And then time to restore service, and we are doing a service breakout here on time to restore service because it's about the service. So we have our trend chart or single value here, and then again, top, what is time to restore service cut out by top services by P1 incidents here. And that's over the last 24 hours by default. So that's a little bit about the DORA metrics. We have some out of the box reports here that you can turn into alerts if you'd like. Right? And again, any of these charts, you can open up the search in there, save that as a search here in reports, and build monitors and alert off of that as needed. And these can all be modified. All right, jumping into pipeline overview. This is all about the same data, but this data is a little bit more geared towards an operational use case, right? So the DORA data there is very much, it's almost like business insights where you want to, maybe you sit down at the end of a sprint in a retrospective, and you look at some of the metrics, or you report out on those on a sprint by or monthly or quarterly basis, right? Internally here at Sumo Logic, we report out on that in our internal live site meetings across the organization. The different teams report out on that, and share, what are they doing to improve their lead times, or how they have already improved their lead times for other teams to learn and follow suit, right? So this operational data is again focused more on what's happening right now, what bottlenecks may be occurring in the pipeline, what issues may be occurring that I need to jump in and actually take a look at now, right? So maybe more of like someone that's actually building or developing or is responsible for a particular service that's running through the pipeline all day. Our customers will configure alerts off of this data so they can be notified in real time across the entire DevOps tool chain, right? All the data is coming in here, right? So the configured alerts to be able to react and respond and perform root cause analysis, right, from a single location. So that's kind of the intent of this data. So let me walk through these dashboards real quick. Pipeline executions. This is giving you trend lines of deployment frequency across each pipeline. I know I've only got one in here in this sample data, but typically, right, if you got 2, 3, 50, 500, you'll see that in there or be able to filter by, what makes sense to you. And then we kind of take a right to left approach of data from production moving back. So we've got summary view of alerts. This is kind of like, these are kind of like top 10 or just, summary data for you to kind of tease out what you may want to drill down into. We've got deploys cut by status, the last 10 failed deploys, builds cut out by status, last 10 failed builds. You can see all this is hyperlinked to the tool sending the data. Pull requests, I'm probably not allowed to look at our source code. We'll find out. Yeah, see, so I'm locked out here, which is a smart idea to keep biz dev out of your source code at your organization. And And then that's cut by status, right? And then same with issues. So if you're sending in maybe all of your issues from a Jira or from some other ticketing system, we can cut all that out. We can slice all that out by status. Some of our customers are really maybe only interested in sending in bugs as they pertain to production issues or issues that are occurring in the pipeline via maybe test results. And then there's trend data, and then top 10 issues that are taking the longest to close. We've got that in pull requests too, what PRs are taking a long time to close. And this isn't over the duration of forever, right? Because then this would just be the same, these would be the same 5 pull requests that got closed 10 years ago, right? This is over the last 7 days. So this is like a running top 10, right? And so let's drill down into each of these. One of the key ones I wanted to show you again is the instrumentation we've done in this example here with Jenkins. So we have an app that Sumo Logic has made for Jenkins where we instrument the pipeline, we collect timing data from across the pipeline. We have one available for Circle CI as well, and we have support for Bitbucket and other tools. The data here is the reflection of that, right? So the intent is to try to surface bottlenecks that are slowing down the CI/CD process. And I've got a really simple example here, but when you have a dozen pipelines that you're trying to keep an eye on throughout the day, or maybe hundreds, and you're setting alerts based off of conditions, you want to get notified when there are anomalies or things that are taking longer than expected, so you can jump in and solve for these faster. We do provide some data up here at the top where we're slicing data by the execution count, by the different stages in the pipeline, which stages are failing the most, right? But another important one here is the pipeline duration cut by each stage, right? So each step or each component of your pipeline where you're doing building, you're doing testing, we're showing the relationship to those stacked by each pipeline, so you can just very quickly go, what is taking so long? This is an obvious one here, right? Okay, so I see here in my master build test that my regression tests are taking longer than everything else. So in Jenkins, stages are broken down by steps. So if I want to go down and understand what are the slowest steps in here, you're going to have a million steps in here across all your pipelines. But if you filter by a particular stage, it becomes obvious that something is hung up here with our backend ETL tests, right? So then that would inform me I need to go in and see for this particular pipeline that ran, what was the issue that occurred here, right? So again, simple example, but this is a really nice way to take a look at a large amount of data that we're instrumenting across all of your pipelines, across a team or even the entire organization, and very quickly visualize or just receive alerts on what are the bottlenecks, what are the things that are taking longer than everything else, right? And this data is coming in real time, so it's nice to be able to react to it relatively quickly. The last set of dashboards are just tied off of the summary data I mentioned earlier, similar to the DORA metrics. For issues, we're cutting this data by type, by status, by priority, by project. We have the issue trend, average time taken to close issues, cut by project. So if different projects have a longer time to close issues, if you have some outliers here, it'd be helpful to maybe jump in and understand what's going on here. Same with this data cut by service. And then what are the top 10 issues that took the longest to close, and latest issues as well. For pull requests, this is an interesting dashboard. I mean, we provide some summary data up here at the top, cutting pull requests by their status. The top cutting them by service. What are the top 10 services by pull requests? Showing kind of the activity here. Pull requests by target branch. Who's if you got teams following different workflows here, some maybe during mainline, some maybe more doing like a Git flow type process. You'll be able to see that here. Top 10 reviewers by assigned pull requests. So, who's getting assigned a lot of pull requests. This can be helpful. If you're an engineering manager and you're working on resourcing and trying to make sure that certain people aren't getting too much work, or certain people need to come in and do more work and help out on a different type of app or a service, especially if you're trying to kind of cross-pollinate. It can be helpful to make sure you got a good balance of work going on here. Top 10 reviewers by average time to close. This can be helpful and identify PRs that are taking a long time to close and who's involved. So you can come in if you're mentoring and trying to help teams. Maybe pull requests are way too large. Maybe you see over here that the person who's taking longer to close issues is being assigned too many PRs, right? Or maybe they're taking on too much work. So it's a good way to just visualize this data to jump in and help out your team. And then the same thing is cut by repo, right? And then a relationship between created versus merged versus declined, or any of the other pull request statuses, give you a sense of trend changes. If something starts getting a little bit out of whack, it's helpful to be able to jump in and help out the team before things start falling behind. And again, all of this is, these things are linked to the repos, right? So GitHub and all the other version control systems include links back to the pull request. So, you can actually jump into those PRs and get to the root cause quickly. So we don't just want to show you the summary data, we want to give you context, and as you need to hop into that other platform to get your job done, right? That's what we want to facilitate here. Same with the builds, showing this data by status, by service, by team, like the last dashboard, the relationship between the different statuses over time. So, monitor this data, set alerts on it, get out in front of any negative trend changes, or share out what's working well, right? Then next, I believe we have deployments. Same as the last one, by result, by environment. You can filter by any of this if you're not, if this is a lot of data and you're only interested in your team or a particular service for deployments, or a particular environment. Maybe you're in quality engineering, you're working on trying to get, or in DevOps, right? And you're really focused on trying to make sure that deployments are running smoothly across each environment. You're not necessarily maybe responsible for the application, but getting it deployed. We've got some options for you there. Deploys cut by repository, just like the others. Deploys cut by service, deploys cut by team. Most recent deployments, and then the relationship of success versus failed deployments as well. And the likes of Jenkins and the others provide URLs for you to jump back in, even dig back into the these logs for these are expiring. Okay, yeah. So last week those were there, but if you want to jump in and understand a recent issue, right, an operational use case in those other platforms, what happened, you can dig back into that data right there very quickly. And then finally, last dashboard, and then I'll switch over to Q&A here, are the alerts. So these are the actual production incidents that are coming in. This is stuff that, SREs and support teams are also kind of, interested in. Really anyone that's, owning their application from end to end, from development to production, right? So here at Sumo, our developers are responsible. Right, they're on call for all of the services that they develop and deploy. So this is helpful for them when they're doing retrospectives, or if they're doing maybe an analysis of an incident that occurred, or reporting out on changes over time. in their MTTR. This can be helpful, show things by priority right now, alerts cut out by service, by team. What are the most recent high priority alerts and the alert IDs in the alerting platform? And then trend lines of status, created versus closed, as well as the alerts by service. So this will give you a breakdown of each of the service and show, what service here is, and you can, jump into the logs and understand, what service is this? What is it contributing? What service is this? What is the issue? Why are there so many compared to the other services? So I think, in summary, the idea here is to do a couple things here, right? So on the Dora metrics side, give you kind of that business intelligence, or that intelligence in the CI/CD process to both benchmark where you are and make, again, not guesses, but like actual data-driven decisions around how you want to improve, where you want to focus that effort to improve. And then on the operational side, looking at the data that's coming in, what's trending right now, what's coming in, and just making it really easy to either dig into the logs here or dig into the logs or events or alerts in that particular platform to resolve issues and unblock unblock the pipeline. So I think with that, I'll stop the share. And if anyone has any questions in the Q&A, feel free to ask. It looks like, as usual, I nailed it. And no one has any questions because I answered everybody's questions in this perfect webinar about software development optimization. But I'll tell you what, I'll give everyone maybe a minute if they're typing stuff out here to toss something in. And then I know the moderators, if they haven't already, they'll be sending out a note to all of the panelists. You can feel free to join us on our public Slack, and I actually see here that's our private Slack. So our IT will promptly deny a request to join slack.sumologic.com, but our public Sumo Logic Slack is our dojo for training. I'm on there. Our integration engineers that have developed this application are on there, and I'm just going to type it in here. So sumodojo.slack.com is the Slack org. Feel free to hop over there and jump in. You can find me and the team in there if you have any questions. And I believe for anyone that wants to email me directly, feel free to do that. And for your existing customers, or if you're existing customers or you're interested, check out sales@sumologic.com. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to reach out. And then the last thing here, for those of you that have hung out here on the call, thanks again for joining. But one thing I do want to call out here is data coming in from these tools. It's not a ton of data. It's a pretty small amount of data, right? These aren't logs spewing out from the CDN that you use. This isn't a giant fire hose of data coming from whatever cloud platform you're running on. These are events and logs coming out based off of pretty much human activity from your organization, and not activity from your customer base, which is typically much smaller, right? Typically you have more customers, more users than you do employees, right? And my point there is, you can actually jump in and grab a free trial for Sumo. Sumo starts you on, the enterprise trial with all the bells and whistles, and I encourage you to check that out. We also do have a free plan that has a pretty good data limit for you to actually get up and running, send all of this data into Sumo Logic, and use all of the features that I showed you today for free. So definitely encourage you to go try that out. Check out our documents at help.sumologic.com. And again, reach out if you have any questions. And thanks again, everyone, for joining, and have a great week. Appreciate it. Bye.